Perfect. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the MPG Ranch. I'm Allie, and this is Mary Rose. Mary Rose is our exceptional bee expert and botanist. And I'm going to let her start just by introducing a little bit of where the place that we're at MPG Ranch, and then tell a little bit about herself.
So, hi everyone, I'm Mary Rose Coleman. I'm a botanist and native bee researcher at MPG Ranch. MPG Ranch is a conservation property in western Montana. We're a little south of Missoula, near a town called Florence. MPG Ranch, as a conservation property, it is about 17,000 acres, and it's managed for research and restoration and conservation. A lot of different people have research projects on the ranch. There are people from universities and other organizations who conduct research here. And I'm a staff botanist and native bee researcher, like I said, and so my research here is on native bees. So I spent 7 years monitoring native bee communities across sites all across the ranch. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today, and then just talk to you mostly about bees and wild bee ecology, and and answer any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And yes, this is a great time. There's two ways. We can either unmute your microphones if you have questions, or you can also use the chat function as well. But so starting off, will you tell us a little bit about your research project? What were you researching? Obviously, bees. Like, what was your hypothesis? What did you want to learn?
Right. So, like I said earlier, there's a lot of restoration that happens on MPG Ranch. And what we do with restoration is there'll be an area, like some of the land has been damaged or altered in some way so that it's no longer native or natural. Maybe that's for agriculture. So actually on MPG Ranch, mostly that's for agriculture. So because there's no agriculture here on the ranch anymore, researchers have wanted to restore that so it looks more like the native landscape around here. So we wanted more native plants because we're not growing wheat or alfalfa anymore. So how can we make it look more native? So as researchers have planted different species of plants and changed the plant community, I was catching bees to see how bee communities responded to the changes in the plant communities. So my hypothesis was that as the plant communities change to look more native, then the bee communities would also change to look more native. So it would look more like the bee communities in the surrounding landscape that have been unaltered. So that was my hypothesis.
I love it. So how would a day start for you during this study? So let's say that today was a study day. What would you be doing, or what would you be looking for?
Right. So I would sample several times throughout the season. So from when it starts getting sunny and warmer, I sample, and I would sample like 5 to 9 times, like every 2 or 3 weeks. I would go out and sample bees all across the ranch. But the days that I need to sample are days, since I'm catching bees, I need to sample on days that bees are actually out flying. And those days had to meet certain criteria. So those days had to be sunny, or at least partly sunny, or brightly overcast. So it had to be a bright day, whether it was super sunny or not, but the sun needed to come out sometimes. It also needed to be a relatively warm day, so maybe about 58 degrees or so would be the minimum temperature.
Okay, so just checking. We have sunshine today. We can see that.
Yep.
I'm looking at the weather. It says that it is 59 degrees where we're at right now, so we're going to work. Okay, any other criteria?
The criteria is that it needs to be still, relatively still. It's okay if it's a little bit windy or something, but a windy day does not work. So today meets the criteria for sunny, it meets the criteria for temperature, it does not meet the criteria for wind. Today's has been actually starting to...
I know, I was just going to say, it looks pretty quiet!
It was really dusting earlier, and it was Yeah, we were just getting blown around.
We had to move up to the porch here because things were just wild earlier. But you actually, if you look at the bee cam right now, you can see that it's actually getting pretty active, and I'm seeing lots of bees that are starting to come out and fly. Oh, there's one right there. Fly. And so in a little while, it'll be like the Bee Olympics. Mary Rose is a top competitor in catching bees, and we're going to see if she can use her skill set to get a bee, and then we can look at it really up close. So I'm just curious, Miss Russell and Creston, is your spring nice and chilly the way that ours has been over at the MPG Ranch? We've had a really chilly spring. Yeah, you can give me like a thumbs up.
We think that our spring has been very up and down as far as good days, and then some days we get snow for 6 inches, so it just kind of depends.
Yeah, I would say it's the same. In fact, we were here last year, and the plants were...
They were hopping.
They were...
I got a sunburn that day.
So it's been a little bit slow, but I have started to see some bees out and about in my yard at home.
Yep, there are some bees out. We've got some early spring bees out right now. So bees are kind of like flowers. Like this time of year, you're seeing some different flowers blooming, like buttercups. Maybe if you have a garden in town, you're seeing crocuses or dandelions in your yard. If you're out in eastern Montana or in western Montana, maybe you're seeing prairie crocus, otherwise known as ask flower. Lots of flowers starting to bloom. But if you think about it, those flowers are not going to keep blooming all season. There's going to be they're going to fade away. We're going to get a new set of flowers blooming. And then later in the summer, even a different set of flowers blooming. And bees are the same way. They come out at certain times of the year. Different species fly during different parts of the year. So right now we're seeing early spring bees, a lot of mining bees, some digger bees, and queen bumblebees are mostly what I'm seeing.
So what I'm wondering if we could do is we actually have some up-close photos that Mary Rose took of some bees, and I was wondering if Kathleen would want to share those with us. And what I'd like you to do is think about some observations. And so for each picture, maybe you can think about 3 observations that you notice, and you can even have your teacher type them into the chat. And if you have any questions about those bees, we can answer them as well. But we'll let you observe these bees, and then Mary Rose will tell you a little bit about them. So let's see our first bee, Kathleen.
Will I see it on this screen?
Gosh, you should. Let me make sure. But it is the picture of our minor bee that we are familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think I know what's going on here. Let me see.
On the buttercup.
There it is.
There it is.
Yep. All right. So go ahead and take a look at this, and let's make some observations. And like I said, you can unmute your microphone. You can type them in the chat. But what do you observe in this image? It's black.
It is black.
Mm-hmm.
Is it stripy? What do you think of when you think about bees? A lot of people think they're white or black and yellow striped. This bee's not striped at all. It is kind of curled around the flower parts there. Yeah.
Perfect. I think we had Mrs. Dirk Sanderson's class just join us, and what we're doing right now is we are just taking a look at some early season bees, making some observation. He looks like it's collecting pollen. It looks small.
Yeah, it really does. So those are some great observations, and this is a mining bee, a type of early spring bee, and it is black. See, it's not like black and yellow striped. I see a lot of people draw bees like they're striped, but a lot of bees are not striped. A lot of bees are just black. Some of them are, and this is not a particularly furry bee. It has a little bit on its back, but Bees come in all different colors. Sometimes they're metallic green or metallic blue. They can be black. They can be kind of reddish brown, or they can be black and yellow or just yellow. So this bee is mining bee, an early spring bee, and so the buttercup, which is our earliest wildflower. I believe I took this photograph in March a few years ago. There was nothing else blooming but this, and there were no bees out except for this species of bee. So, and it is kind of curled around the flower parts because she's collecting pollen and nectar that she's going to bring back to her nest, which is just a tunnel in the ground. So these bees are called mining bees because they dig a tunnel in the ground like miners, and here's the solitary bee life cycle, and they live along, they dig a little tunnel, the females will dig a tunnel, she collects pollen and nectar and forms it into a ball and puts it at the bottom of her tunnel, lays an egg on it, and then she kind of closes it up. And here you can see there's a picture, kind of a drawing, like a cartoon drawing of what that looks like. And when that egg hatches, the baby bee is actually like a little grub called a larva, and it eats the pollen and nectar and grows bigger, and then becomes adult size, but is still a baby. It can't fly. It still is just living in the nest, and it'll stay there over the winter, just like that, and then it'll emerge in the spring as an adult. And it'll only fly for a few weeks. So the part of the bee's life cycle that you see when it's flying around collecting pollen and nectar is its adult phase, and that's really a very short phase of its life. Most of its life is spent underground as a baby.
So I actually have a question about this.
Okay.
So we're looking at the life cycle. I'm seeing one solitary egg. That does not look like very good odds for survival. Does the miner bee dig multiple burrows, or does it put all of its eggs in one basket?
So miner bees might do that. It depends on the species, but mostly they dig a little bit longer tunnel and make the ball of pollen and nectar, put an egg on it, and then close up that little cell, and then they'll lay they'll collect more pollen and nectar, and so it'll be like little compartments.
Oh, that's cool.
They still don't lay a lot of eggs. So just one bee might lay 12 eggs. It might lay 50 eggs. But it just really depends on how long that it has access to floral resources. So how long it has access to nectar and pollen, and before it's done with its life cycle.
That's really interesting when you think about habitat and things that disturb.
Yeah, things that are really important to bees are flowers so that they can eat. And it has to be flowers that it wants to eat, because it can't just, a lot of bees can't use just any flower, but it also has to have a safe place to build a nest. So digging up things like, the excavation work and digging in the garden and just a lot of disturbance make it really difficult for underground creatures to find a place to live. So it makes it hard for bees.
Oh, we have our second bee.
Here's a tiny question. Tiny bee.
Give him a clue, for size.
The flower that this is on is a dandelion.
Okay, so let's think about some observations that you have with this guy or gal. I'm not even sure.
This is the guy.
It's a guy. It looks purple.
It's purple. That might just be the kind of from the color of the in the photograph, but it's actually a kind of a dark. It's a black bee with some white hairs on it.
It's the smallest bee I have seen.
It's pretty tiny. This is another kind of mining bee. It's a mining bee called Panurginus, if you're interested in that kind of Latin names. But it is just a little tiny bee, a mining bee, like I said. This is a male, and this male is really just hanging out on this dandelion. This was a dandelion in my yard a few years ago. And because it's a male, he doesn't collect pollen and nectar. He will drink some nectar because he, of course, needs to eat and needs some energy, and nectar is a great source of energy. But he doesn't collect pollen. because he's not involved in nest building. So male bees really just live to mate with females, and he's hanging out on a flower because he knows a female bee will probably come by and he might be able to mate with her. So he's just waiting.
So how do you know that's a male?
So I know this is a male because, well, I know that some features are common in all male bees. So they generally have a longer set of antennae with more segments than the female has. In this group of bees, the males have this white, see that has sort of a yellow triangle on its face, so that's pretty common in this group of bees for the males. They tend to have a little bit longer body than the females too. So I have, of course, observed this bee. I have lots of photos of this bee, and you can tell from my series of photos that this was a male.
I love it. Let's see what's next. We'll do one or two more. Okay. Oh, this is a different one. This one looks like a different.
Yeah, this one's showing a behavior.
Extra points if you can guess what behavior. And if you guys want to unmute your microphones, you're welcome to do that too.
So this is actually another bumblebee. This is another mining bee.
Wow.
So the theme here is that mining bees are early spring bees. We don't see them. There might be a couple that we see later in the season, but almost all of them are gone by July. Looks like brown and fuzzy with a... It's sticking. It's
with a mohawk.
Yeah, with a mohawk. So this bee is doing a behavior called grooming. And so she's at a little flower. This is a pussy toe flower. It's a super early spring pussy toe called Entenaria dimorpha. I think it's like two-form. Maybe it's called two-form pussy toe. There's lots of species of pussy toes. But as she's foraging, the pollen is sticking to her face, and she is grooming the pollen off her face, off her antennae, because she wants to carry it on her back legs, which have specialized hairs for carrying pollen. So you might be able to see that in this photo, that she's got kind of bushy hairs on her back legs. So she's grooming pollen off of her face where it's kind of stuck to her and pushing it back on her legs, which is where she likes to carry it. So, and she does have big eyes, it's true. And then her mouth, where I have the red circle, that is her tongue sticking out. So she's foraging. So as she's collecting pollen, she's also foraging for nectar. And they have this long tongue. Bees are categorized by their tongue shape. So there's a lot of long-tongued bees and short-tongued bees. And this group of bees are short-tongued bees, even though it looks kind of long to us. And so you can see her tongue out there, and she even has like little delicate palps that come out to the side, which may be hard to see on this image.
Almost like fingers.
A little bit, yeah.
I love it. Okay, one more bee, and this one is not, I will give you a clue, not a minor bee. I have learned this.
It's not a minor bee.
Definitely red.
Yes.
Everyone,
It's red.
yes.
It's red.
It looks like an ant.
That's another group
Yep.
said that. So it might be interesting to note that bees and wasps and ants are all very closely related. So they're all in the same order, Hymenoptera.
Mm-hmm. This one kind of looks like a wasp.
Looks like a wasp. Yep, wasps are in the same group. So this bee is a special kind of bee. It doesn't collect pollen and nectar. It is nectaring in this picture because it does need to eat. So the bees will go to the flowers and get a drink of nectar for themselves. The other reason they go to the flower is because they know that minor bees will come to this flower, and they're going to follow the minor bee back to her nest, and she's going to lay, this bee is going to lay her own egg in that minor bee's nest. So she's going to find where that little underground nest is, she's going to wait for the minor bee to leave, and then she's going to break into that nest and lay her own egg and have her baby eat the pollen and nectar and grow in that nest.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a type of life history called kleptoparasitism, And what it means is that they're stealing resources for themselves. So it's like a parasite. She doesn't need to collect her own pollen and nectar because she's going to steal it from somebody else. And this group preys on andrena bees, like the minor bees that we just saw. And then the common name for this kind of bee is called a cuckoo bee. And cuckoo bees there's all different kinds of cuckoo bees. They don't all look like this, but this is just one group of cuckoo bees. And we see cuckoos in lots of animals, so you might be familiar with it in birds. So there's a type of bird called a cuckoo bird that does this behavior where it lays its eggs in another bird's nest. If you're in North America, especially Western North America, you might be familiar with cowbirds. They do the same thing where they lay their eggs in the nests of other birds. They don't build their own nests, they don't feed their own babies, they just put their eggs in another person's nest, another bird's nest, and let somebody else put it in their babies.
That's pretty funny. My goodness. Okay, so we just saw 4 different bee species, right?
Yep. It could have been 2. It could have been 3 different bee species.
Three different bee species. So here's a question for everybody. I want you to wager a guess. You can type it in the chat. How many bee species has Mary Rose found at the MPG Ranch? So we know for certain we have 3 of them. You can have multiple guesses. Okay, let's see.
Any guesses yet?
Ooh, 57 or 85.
Okay.
Those are good guesses.
Pretty good guesses, but you need to go up.
Yeah, we'll see what Creston and if Mrs. Dirks Anderson's class wants to put a guess in as well. We'd love to hear it or see it. Ooh, 100, 127, or 130.
Those are great guesses.
Yep.
You need to go even higher.
Oh my gosh. What was the question? How many different species of bees have we collected at MPG?
So one guess is 500, which is a great guess. That's about how many?
Oh, Miss Russell, 223.
Oh, that's good.
Whoa!
That's fairly specific. There are over 230 species and morphospecies documented at MPG Ranch now.
Wow. Okay, so let's bring out the board
We're going to
here.
bring out the display.
So while we're getting the board, Miss Dirks Anderson's class is in Kenai Borough, Alaska.
Oh.
So if you have any Alaska info for them.
I wish. Let's see. Well, your common bees, you will have a lot of bumblebees up there. I love that. So here, this is a display case of bees that have been caught at MPG Ranch. I don't know if you can see them.
Oh, yeah.
But there are 5.
Ooh, the colors are coming up nicely right now.
Let's see. So can you see there at Halictidae? Oh gosh, I can never figure out.
You're perfect. It's right there.
So those bees are bright green. Some of these in the Megachilidae, the Osmia, are bluish purple, bluish green. They're metallic colored. Here's some bumblebees. They're pretty big and furry. Lots of yellow, black, and orange on those guys. Here's some striped bees in the Megachilidae. These are common bees here in the Halictidae. These are sweat bees. The Andrenidae have the mining bees. So some of the bees we looked at here,
Yep. You're good.
are these, and those here down here,
Little itty bitties.
are the Perdita and Panurginus, some of our tiniest bees. But even these guys are pretty little. So lots of different sizes and shapes.
So we do have a question. Mrs. Dirks Anderson wants to know. So remember, they're up in Alaska.
Okay.
Of the 20,000, and that's a really good number to think about, different types of bee species, how many are in, and I'm just going to say Montana.
Okay, so there are 20,000 bee species worldwide. There are 4,000 bee species in North America. In Montana, we have over 350 bee species, probably at this point over 400. I don't remember what the documented number was, but it's between 350 and 400 right now. On MPG Ranch, we have 230. California, which none of us are in California, but
Fun fact.
About California. California has over 1,000 bee species. I'm not sure about Alaska's number of bee species, but I know they have a pretty good diversity of bumblebees. And I'm not sure about a lot of the other bee species in Alaska. But there are, in Montana, we have 5 families of bees. There are 7 families worldwide. And we have 5 of them.
That's pretty good. Wow.
In Montana. Yeah.
That's incredible. I want to pause and see if there's also any questions. Either Mrs. Dirks Anderson, you can type in, or Mrs. Russell's class, or if Preston 56 has any questions for Mary Rose.
Oh, that might be a good thing.
And I've got that life cycle.
Yeah. One of the common questions I get. Oh wait, here we go.
Oh, you got so many. Yes.
The most dangerous bee in Montana. Bees are dangerous, you guys. Unless you have unless you have a bee allergy, like a sting allergy, and in that case you might have an allergic reaction to bees. But overwhelmingly, native bees are not aggressive, and they're not they're not aggressive towards people, even if you get close to their nest. The exception to that might be honeybees. But I also want to point out that honeybees are not native to North America. They're domesticated by humans, and they're considered livestock, and they're regulated as livestock. The reason why that they're in North America is because they're the only bee that produces honey in the North American continent. There are some stingless bees in like Central America that produce a honey-like substance, but the reason why honeybees are here is because people love sweet things, and honeybees collect pollen and nectar and produce and concentrate the nectar into honey, which is extremely sweet, as you know. So honeybees are a special kind of bee. They have a perennial colony. That means that the colony lives for many years. They have a different social structure. Remember earlier I said that most bees live alone and are solitary and build their own nest? They don't live in a hive. They just live in a little hole in the ground. Most of our native bees are similar to that. But honeybees are different, and you know probably that there's lots of bees, there's a hive, they have a waxy comb, they store honey in there, and that is really unique to honeybees and honeybees alone in the North American continent. So when you see honeybees in the wild, so honeybees are really not necessary in North America, except in like some pretty intensive agricultural situations. But in general, honeybees are not necessary because we have 4,000 species of awesome pollinating bees in North America. Now, the closest that we do have to honeybees are their relative, the bumblebees.
And Alaska looks like they have a cool fact.
Oh, do they? Let's see what Alaska is 23. Yes!
Uh-oh.
Oh, wait, I lost it.
Hold on. Here we go. Let me get it back for you. There you go.
Oh, okay. Are the bees controlled by the queen, or are they able to think on their own? So it's not really like, it's a social, they have a sociality, it's called, but they're not really controlled by the queen. They all kind of work together for a common goal. So one of the things that all species want to do is they want to like survive, and they want to reproduce. So this is just a life history trait. It's just one of the ways that they've found to be more successful. So bumblebees, this is the bumblebee life cycle. And remember I said that honeybees had a perennial colony that lasted for a lot of years. Bumblebees have an annual colony that lasts for only 1 year. And so the way this happens, if you look at the top, there it says spring, and there's a a bumblebee on a flower there. So that's a queen bee, and she has emerged in the spring. So right now we're seeing queen bumblebees. She's going to forage for pollen and nectar. Then she's going to find a place to have a nest, and she's going to start provisioning the nest. So she's going to bring pollen and nectar. She kind of builds these little waxy pots. She does not build a honeycomb. She builds little waxy pots and she stores her pollen and nectar in those waxy pots. And then as she collects enough resources, enough pollen and nectar, and builds enough pots, she starts to lay eggs. And those eggs hatch. And do you see at the bottom, there are some green little workers. And now the workers are going to help. They're going to help tend to the extra eggs. They're going to go out and forage. And that queen doesn't have to go out anymore. Now she can stay in her nest. She can keep laying eggs and building her waxy pots for her workers to bring nectar and pollen to. And then her colony gets bigger as she has more babies who help and workers to help her provision her nest. And then towards the end of the season, she lays eggs that turn into new queens and into males. And those new queens and males, when they hatch and become adults, they fly away, they mate with other males and queens of their species, and those new queens that have just mated find a place to hibernate, underground usually, and they stay underground for the winter, and all the other bees die, including the old queen. And that new queen that hibernated, when it's warm enough in spring, will reemerge and start the cycle over. So this is really different from a honeybee, which has a queen and has bees that have workers that live all year, or keeps creating more workers that keep her, and they're alive and awake during the winter. So it's a different life cycle, but it's the closest we have within the native bee group. Oh, somebody said they want to know how to heal a bee sting if you are allergic. Okay, so I feel like I have to address this because I do get this question a lot. If you are truly allergic to bee stings and have an anaphylactic reaction, you should probably go to the hospital. But everybody who gets stung by a bee will have a local swelling. So that's just normal. That's just your body responding. And if you have that, if it's a honeybee, sometimes there's a stinger and you can remove it. But native bees, there's no stinger. I mean, they have a stinger, but the stinger doesn't stay in your skin. It just like poked you, might have injected some venom. You swell up just in that spot. And you can sometimes put some like baking soda and water mixture on it. But really, it kind of goes away on its own. Maybe some Benadryl if your parents have some Benadryl. But mostly, you're not going to get stung by bees unless you're really being obnoxious around them, or it's an accident.
I've encountered both of those, I think. Oh, one more question before we transition to catching. What happens if the queen dies before the egg hatch and the rest of the bees live?
What a great question.
Ooh, interesting.
So a lot of times, so if they might just live out their life. So it kind of depends on what's going on. If the queen dies and there's workers, those workers will just continue to work in a lot of cases, and there's just no other offspring. They just finish out their lives, and nobody survives through. They just all die at the end of the year. Sometimes it happens that a queen has started laying eggs and she has some workers, and then she is chased away from her colony by another species of bee, a special kind of parasitic species of bee, and that bumblebee will come in and chase away the queen, or sometimes kill the queen, and then this new queen of a different species lays her own eggs and has the old queen's workers raise her babies. So
tricky.
Yeah, bees have all kinds of strategies for being successful in life, and sometimes it seems a little sketchy. But all these species have their own strategies for being successful.
Talk about a workaholic. No kidding. Go on vacation. So I think it's time for Bee Olympics.
Bee Olympics.
Which means that Mary Rose is going to head down below where Kathleen has set up, and it's a beautiful golden currant that is in full bloom right now, which is where our bee cam's on. She's taking that down. I'm going to make this guy big, and she's going to try to catch a bee that we can look at up close, and we'll see what she finds. So we got the bee cam. You can see Kathleen with her hair.
My hair.
Here I am at the golden.
There's a lot of bees now.
catch a bee.
Yeah, the
Wait,
wind
let me be sure you're on camera. Just a sec.
has died down.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, these bees are active. All right.
There's a lot of them now, though.
Yeah, I know. I also don't want to hit you in the head with a net.
Oh, that was a good one. Right there. Right here. Right.
Right where? Oh, I see. No,
See?
well, I can't get her with it.
Oh, she was out in the.
Yeah, she needs to be a little more accessible.
She was right here.
Wait for somebody.
Did you get him?
No. Didn't get her.
Oh. I feel like. There's.
All right, I'm hunting. I'm hunting bees.
I'm getting really excited about this.
Be very, very quiet.
Okay, wait.
All right, I'm looking for other bees. You guys can't tell this, but there are a lot of bee shenanigans going on right now. There are males and females, and I'm seeing the females are. Your computer's too close. Oh gosh.
Oh, darn.
Dang it.
Oh, there's one right there.
Don't see. Oh, no. If it's in, I can't grab it. It has to be kind of on the outside. Oh, let me try this. Let me switch places here.
Yeah.
The females are trying to forage for pollen and nectar, and the males are here and they're looking for a chance to mate. So they're hoping to mate. Gotta be careful.
Oh, I think maybe.
No. There's a fly in there. A fly. It's also kind of hard to catch them when they use the flowers inside the. There's a bunch of bees, but they're not always accessible.
There's one right there.
Where?
Right down at the bottom there.
Oh, yeah. When it goes in.
I want the kids to cheer you on.
No, catching bees is harder.
Not as easy as it looks. That's why it's the Bee Olympics.
No, it's the Bee Olympics. That's a pretty good success today.
I'm looking for bees and not putting the camera on you.
About catching bees and they usually want to avoid necessarily that I'm trying to catch them, but they do know that another creature is troublesome, so they want to avoid me. So they're trying to do their own thing without being bugged by me. Trying to sneak up on them. Like I said, there's a lot of shenanigans going on.
See, like in there.
Perfect.
Oh,
God.
no swears. One more try.
Another shot.
Here, beep, beep, beep,
I know. They don't fly right in. But they're not. Oh, I got it!
Woohoo! Okay, go ahead and take it up.
All right. So I got it. And we'll go look at it up.
Oh, that. Well, he said not to swear, but boy, that bee is swearing.
All right, she's bringing a bee up close.
Hey!
Okay.
All right.
Want some help?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to transfer this bee into a
Oh, look at that one.
So let me see if I can get her in here, get him in here.
We had a female last time. We had to be really careful with that one.
Yeah, females have stingers. Whoa,
Oh, he's busy.
he is, and he does not like it. But he's been caught. And I don't blame him.
No, very crabby.
There we go.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. Here's our bee. Well, he doesn't belong to us. He belongs to himself.
Way to honor his sovereignty.
Can you guys see this? I'm trying to
Yeah,
get it so
I'm
you
gonna-
can see it.
I'm going to try to play around with the contrast just a little bit here. Whoa, wrong way.
Whoa.
Whoa, crazy. That's about right. Yes.
All right, so this is an bigger bee. These bees are pretty big. They're pretty comparable in size to a lot of bumblebees.
We do something like
Is that
that.
good?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. As the things change over the course of the day, the sun moves. It gets harder to show the bees.
So he's pretty furry. So like I said, they are comparable in size to bumblebees, but this bee, this particular species, is gray. See, it's got kind of a black abdomen and gray hairs on it. And then this is a male. He has a slightly longer abdomen than a female. You wouldn't really know that unless you're familiar with the males and females of the species. But the other thing he's got is a big white patch on his face. And he does not have hairy legs because he is not in here collecting pollen.
Is that his tongue?
But I can't see it.
Yeah, take a look at him. Maybe we can show that to the kids. So we can get a really good view. He's got something sticking out.
Well, I can see his mandibles.
Or maybe that's what I'm looking at. Very cool.
He's
Yep.
grooming. Sometimes when they're stressed, they also groom. So he's trying to fly away. He grooms a little bit. He doesn't really like being in here. But we're going to let him go soon. He wants to get back to that currant bush and all the
lady.
other lady bees. So yeah,
Do we have the tarantula hawk wasp?
we do not. Not in Montana, but I sure do like those. They're big, aren't they? Great big.
Do you have them up in Alaska?
No, I can't
They're in
remember.
the South
Eat it?
West.
Somebody said eat it? I'm not going to eat a bee. Why would I do that? You do it. I'm going to let this guy go. Let's see. You can see him get his freedom. There he goes.
Oh, and he was out. He was ready. Oh my goodness. So we are just about out of time. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any other questions that we didn't get to, feel free to email me and I will pass those on to Mary Rose and we will get those answered for you. But my goodness, we really appreciated it. Oh, they're in deserts. Yep. Yeah.
Yep, they are in desert places.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, everybody, thank you so much and we hope to see you all again.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
And there's